Right, and say welcome everyone to our weekly call. Hope you all had a good weekend. I'll share my screen as always, so you can see what the agenda for the meeting is. As the title says, we're going to sort of mainly focus on resolver capability testing. So I'll hand over to Mark Robertshaw from the DNS Research Federation in a moment to give that presentation, and then, as always, talk about some recent developments in the news, in the IETF and elsewhere. Highlight some forthcoming events and some future cool topics, including an update on progress with with a suggestion that was made on the call last week. Just to give an update on that. But firstly, let's talk about resolver capability testing. And for context, Mark gave a really interesting presentation at the OARC meeting a couple of weeks ago now, roughly, or a week and a half ago, talking about a project that the DNS Research Federation had undertaken, I think with funding from the Office of the CTO from ICANN, but Mark will correct me in a moment if that's wrong. And so it explained the project and the capability, but wasn't able to give a demonstration of it because of the challenges of doing so using the AV setup that was in place for the OARC meeting. So Mark kindly agreed to come on the call today to perhaps give a short reprise for anyone that wasn't at the OARC meeting, so they understand what the purpose of the project is, but most importantly, to give a demonstration of the software itself. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing. And at this point, hand over to Mark to just take us through the project and in particular the demonstration. So thanks for joining, Mark, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It's great to be here today. Apologies for those that were at the OARC meeting, because I'm going to do a bit of a walkthrough of the similar kind of presentation first to give a bit of context there, but hopefully we'll be able to get through that fairly quickly and get on to the more interesting and exciting demonstration today. So I think most people on the call probably know who we are, so I won't dwell on this too much, but we're a not-for-profit entity, DNS Research Federation, with a fairly broad mission to understand the DNS system and its impact on those different areas of cybersecurity policy and technical standards. And a lot of how we achieve that is through education and research, access to data, and also engagement in standards. So this project we're talking about today is quite an interesting one because it kind of intersects with a few of those different points of our mission, but it's very much, we're very interested in the whole aspects of technical engagement with the DNS as well as part of what we do. So moving on to what this is actually all about. The motivation behind what we're doing here is there's an ongoing desire, and in some cases a requirement, to measure capabilities of resolvers in the wild. Now, this has been going on for a number of years, and in particular, AP Nick and Jeff Houston has done a lot of work, precedent work on this over the last decade or so. He has access to large quantities of data via Google Ads, but one of the sort of concerns might be that sort of methodology for gathering data may not be something that is possible forever, and also not necessarily repeatable in the same way by other organizations. So ICANN Octo commissioned us to develop an open source framework using sort of standard components, particularly standard DNS and web servers, to undertake this kind of resolver capability testing. And I think the key points here are that, as well as collecting data, ideally in the long term, be able to collect data in bulk from across the industry. It allows organizations in particular to perform private testing themselves as well. So, you know, if you as an organization wanted to test your user base for a given DNS feature, you could do that for yourself very readily and also in a very private way and collect that data for yourself using a test bed. But equally, the idea being that once that's happening at scale, we start to share the data between ourselves and start together a bit of a global picture for resolver capabilities as well. So the scope for this project out of the box for the first phase was to produce 6 DNS tests Ones that many will be familiar with. So IPv6 transport, which is what the one I'll actually use for demonstration purposes today. There's also QName minimization, which is increasingly popular amongst DNS name servers these days. Aggressive NSEC, minimum TTL allowed. Again, that's just testing times lives really. And TCP fallback, something that was a big thing on the agenda I noticed last week at DNS OARC, and increasingly interesting as we start to move more towards IPv6 and UDP packet sizes becoming more of a problem. And finally, of course, DNSSEC validation as well. And that sort of is a scope of the test that we've been given for the first rounds. In doing this, by nature, we're a software developer team, so we've designed it to be extensible, and we fully intend for this tool to be taken forwards with an extensible architecture to allow custom user integrations and user developed tests over time as well. So that gives hopefully a sense for the scope of what we're trying to do here. In terms of the architecture, this picture is probably the best place to start, and it kind of gives you a sense of the different components that are in play with the test bed. So in the middle is what we'd call the sort of, I guess, the server, and on that we configure that with both an authoritative DNS server as well as a web server. And the idea being that on the left-hand side, you have a client-hosted website, which is usually configured with a block of sort of background JavaScript that would make calls to domain names that have been configured on the test bed in the middle. And in making that call to the domain names, it would then trigger requests to that resolve, which you can see in the top left-hand side of the screen.
Yeah, I think is as a company tied to this slide here, which again they had shared at the sales kickoff. And so if you look at what I would refer to as these 3 levels of, call.
Sorry about that. Did we get interrupted there? Okay, apologies for that. So we have the configured testbed in the middle. We have the left-hand side with a client-hosted website, and we have the triggering request from the resolver at the top left-hand side. That generates requests to the test beds, and therefore we can start to collect data on the request being made by the resolver. On the right-hand side, what you see here is our system that we ourselves have developed, which is the adapt.live platform, which is very much the way that we as a federation process and analyze data. And what we've done is we've allowed connectivity from the test bed that we've developed directly to our own system for analysis. And I will show you as part of the demonstration purposes later on how data can be piped straight for analysis to our own platform as well. Okay, so moving on to the key components here. As mentioned, we have a what's called a server-side configuration tool, and that's really is the sort of centerpiece of the testing bed, which is the bit where you would configure your tests. That comprises 2 components, effectively a tool for configuring tests and also a logging cron job, which basically effectively combines the logs all together and produces nice rational output from the tests as the tests are completed. The other side, of course, is the client-side website toolkit, which is a JavaScript library installed on the test bed on the testing websites, which then would create the requests required to the back end to collect data. So we'll look first of all in a little bit more detail at the server side. So yeah, here we have a CLI. We just to make it clear, we're using commodity servers here. So we're using Bind and Apache for testing for this purposes. And the idea is that the only bit that you have to do as an end user is effectively register a domain name with your registrar, and then point that domain name at the test bed using the delegated name servers. And the testbed CLI will then configure everything that's required for you for a given test. So there's no actual need to do any work yourself as a configurer in configuring the zone files or even configuring the Apache side or the certs required to make it secure. That's all managed by the tool itself. And ultimately, the CLI also provides you with access to the test logs coming out of the server in standard formats as well. So it's easy to work with the data that's being produced and collected from the tests as well. And finally, the last thing that's important is there's a logging cron involved, because of course this is not simple architecture in that you often have more than one request coming in to fulfill a test. That's often required, and we need to have some intelligence around collecting those logs. and aggregating them together into logical single hit results, which then can be reported as single test results and sent through to the platform for reporting. And as mentioned, we're very keen to make this extensible. And so what we've gone for here is configuring all of our tests using standard JSON schema. This is very much a work in progress at the moment, but we expect in terms of the being able to develop this further and for users to be able to develop their own tests in time as well, that having a very standard approach to this is really important. So you can see in the example we see on the right here, we have configured some DNS zone with a number of different records. This is showing a TTL test, as well as configuring the web server as well. And we can also configure the rules and expectations as part of that process as well. So the idea being that ultimately, creating a new test would be as simple, hopefully, as writing a JSON file in terms of configuring and tweaking the tests that are built in as well. I think it's important to mention that we've already said this, that actually the logs are they incorporate everything that you get for a given test in one nice, neat line. And we do have an indication of pass and fail for a given test, although sometimes it's clear that some tests have more than two states. Sometimes it's not that's clear cut, but we tend to support a pass-fail outcome for simplicity for our testing. And I think it's important to mention that a really important point from privacy is that the logging level can be adjusted so that any IP address that we log can be selectively logged either at the /24 level, or if you want to at the full IP level, but that's up to you as an organization as to how much you want to log. But you can avoid the privacy issues by logging at a lower level than the full granularity if you wish. Okay, moving on to the client side. This is the side that's installed on the web browser to facilitate the creation of requests to the testbed. So this is installed as a very standard ES6 JavaScript library, and it works very much in the same way as, say, Google Analytics, where it creates a background AJAX request for test domains configured on the server side. So it effectively generates a request for us, but it allows really for scaling this out to busy websites where you can have a test just encoded as part of this sort of page load on a front page, for example, and you can perform the testing you need in a very silent way in the background without interrupting the user flow. And again, it's a simple API in JavaScript for that. And it's also in the same way as the server side is extensible, it's possible to create your own JavaScript triggers for tests that you might write to encode the different logic that you might need for a given test. In some cases, tests may require more than one request, for example. That can be easily configured and built using the JavaScript APIs supplied as part of the client-side toolkit. So just before I move on, can I just confirm that I'm still connected? Can everybody hear me okay? Are we all good?
Yes.
Perfect. Sorry, there was a bit of an interruption during the presentation. I was checking that I hadn't lost the connection. That's great. Thank you very much. So as promised, we're about to do a demonstration of the system. And I think that the easiest way to demonstrate this is by taking an example of one of the tests that we've developed, and that's the IPv6 test. And those of you that were around in DNS OARC last week, this is quite a nice one to use because it lines up nicely with the presentation that Jeff Houston did. Now, he obviously demonstrated and quoted some statistics about the kind of percentage of resolvers which are currently supporting IPv6. This test is a test that would look at that as well. So in order to make an IPv6 test effective, we need to actually do two tests, in fact. We first will configure a domain name. In this case, we're using the domain name resolvertest.space as an example. And that's being configured with v6 glue and quad A NS records only, which means that domain name will not route over IPv4 at all. So it requires the resolver to be using IPv6 to actually generate traffic to our testbed. Obviously, that alone, we would not know if a resolver was not supporting IPv6, we get no traffic. So in order to guarantee traffic as well for each resolver, we create a regular v4 glue and standard configured domain name as well with a similar IPv4 hyphenated domain name, so that we've got a sort of dual test here where we can receive traffic from both IPv4 and IPv6, and we can confirm whether we got traffic from both or not. So in order to facilitate that, we set up a wildcard A record on both domains. Importantly, it's an A record in both cases because we don't want to convolute the test by putting IPv6 in the actual operational flow. So we put an A record on both domains, and we use a wildcard so we can generate unique subdomains per test very easily. And we concur that the test will be successful if we receive DNS requests for both of our test domains via the test prefix, which we're using for this test. So without any more ado, I will come out of here and I will show you how I can, if I can come out of this one here, yeah, how this works in practice. So to demonstrate this, what we're going to do is use on our own website, we have a test page that's ready to go and demonstrates how we would trigger a request to a resolver from our website. So here we can see that we've got an IPv6 test configured down here, ready to go, with our test domain name, resolvertest.space. And I'm going to submit that now. And it's gone away and it's made a request. And you can see that importantly, sorry, I'll do that again. Importantly, that below here, we can see that we've got a unique posted URL, which has got a prefix on the front, which is unique, and that's a UUID based request. And that means that we can track that request down the line and see what's happened to that request on our server. Now, it doesn't display it in this output here, but actually we've also made a matching request with the same prefix to our second IPv4 domain that we spoke about with the IPv4 prefix. We've actually made 2 requests in the background at this point. And we can see that it looks like it's sent the request quite happily over HTTP, so we're fairly confident that it's working. Now, moving over to the other side of, we're going to jump straight to our own platform where we collect the data into our, as mentioned, our DAP.live platform and have a look. So you can see that already, hopefully I'll just check we're authenticated. We are, that's good. You can see that this is now, we're now looking at the data that we've collected. And this is actually a relatively small data set because it's data we've collected on our own website over the last 3 to 4 months for IPv6. You can see we've got on the right is the proportion resolvers routing IPv6. And despite having really quite a small sample size, because we're working with just traffic to our own smallish site, I was pleased to confirm that our stats are not far off the same stats that we were seeing from Jeff in his presentation last week. And we're getting around 40%, 40% not sort of numbers in sort of terms of not routing IPv6, which is very similar to the results that he presented to us last week. And you can see that by using our own platform, we're able to also pull out other metrics by joining data that we have around as well. So we can see a breakdown of which resolvers are, which ASNs are the top routing ones and the top non-routing ASNs, also top routing countries, and also a breakdown by RIR as well. So it's possible to having got the data in, analyze it and look at it in quite some detail. But in order to confirm that the test has been completed, I've waited 2 minutes and chatted deliberately because it takes a little while for our cron job to aggregate the data. But hopefully what we'll see now, if we come back across to the test we made one a prefix starting with E8FC5. I'm going to look now at the data that's come in for the IPv6 data directly. And we can see that E8FC5 is indeed the last hit that we see at the top here. And you can see what we've got here is the logging of the test that we've just completed. You can see that we've get a very wide set of data, rich set of data coming in here. We have data around the first resolved DNS query, which was the one directly to the IPv6 domain name ending resolvertest.space, and that was successful. We can see we've got a client IP address. This is truncated to /48 for privacy purposes in IPv6. We can see that's come in correctly. And we can also see that we had another hit that's come in for our IPv4 one. That's our sort of control experiment, so to speak. So it proved that we also had a hit from an IPv4 address from our resolver as well, for the same domain prefix. And going forward as well, we can see that equally, we've also had web server hits as well, which we record as a bonus, really. The test is much more around actual IPv6 DNS tracking here, but we can see we've got everything as we expect. And so that would then confirm that we believe that resolver is in fact routing for IPv6. So hopefully that gives you all a picture of how you can sort of fire requests at a test bed, how it can then aggregate the results for you nicely and give you some nice meaningful output at the end of it. And from there, hopefully, if you want to, you can then use that further to provide richer analytics about the way in which the data is accessed. So that concludes my demo, and I'm very happy to take questions interactively for a bit if people have any.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Mark. Good to see it working live as well as just on the slides. Hopefully that was useful to people. So does anyone have any comments or questions? If you do, just unmute, sort of raise your virtual hand using the Zoom tool, or if it's easier, put something in the chat if that's your preference, and I'll read it out loud. But far better to hear your voices if possible.
It looks cool. Thanks for sharing.
No problem. Thank you.
Ralph, did you want to come in?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot. Yeah, looks cool. So, I mean, you currently say this stuff runs with Bind and Apache, and I assume you will, I mean, you'll open source the code, but are there kind of code-wise interfaces thought that people could replace that with other software?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've aimed for here, in honesty, is to try and provide a one-stop shop, and that was kind of our remit. So I mean, and there is actually no reason why you couldn't, you know, use your own software to do the configuration parts, for example, and to generate your own tests more directly. And what we've aimed for here is to provide a very easy way I guess we sort of try and control the whole process, really. So we guarantee the test is set up in an integral way by configuring the zone a certain way, configuring the Apache a certain way, and configuring certs a certain way. But I think also worth mentioning on the logging side, I think there's lots of opportunity for using other tools for that if people prefer to use other alternatives to logging than the ones we provided. Does that answer the question?
Okay, so there are kind of API breakouts for certain things to be replaced with other stuff.
Yeah, the code is pretty extensible, so you cert, yes, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Kurt.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I think this is a quite handy tool for trying to, let's say, set up and debug DNSSEC stuff, because I think this is quite difficult in certain cases, and the visualization, and also to try out testing and injecting, I don't know, intentional errors on verifying these things would be quite handy, because it would speed up potentially DNSSEC rollouts. Is that the case? Are people using it for that?
I would agree with you, Kurt. And actually what we've done deliberately for this particular, you'll see on the left-hand side, we've got three separate DNSSEC data tests here going on. And we've deliberately pulled out the use cases where you have effectively an unsigned zone with a validated DNS delegated record, and vice versa. So you can very rapidly test the scenarios where perhaps, you know, which resolvers are you know, testing a complete DNSSEC chain, for example, as well as those that are testing certain algorithms. But I mean, it's an ideal test bed for testing DNSSEC algorithms in particular, because we support the full range of algorithms, and you can very easily switch those on and then test so I would agree with you, very much so.
Yeah, I think not about the algorithms itself, but still, if you want to check resolver capability and you want to turn off and off validation, this would really help.
Agreed. Yeah, and you can do that for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's good. Other questions from anyone? Perhaps most people are thinking, I mean, Mark, in terms of what the current status of the project is, do you want to just comment on that?
I will. I think I was going to say, Andrew, if I can do one more slide just to finish on the demo, just to say that I think to make the point that, yes, we would love it if people would want to get involved with us with this project. So at the moment, it's very much, you know, first release in beta at the moment, really. We have got a website, and we've got fairly comprehensive documentation on that website as well for how to use it. It is open source. It is installable. We provide RPMs at the moment. We're looking to provide DEBs shortly as well to make it really easy to install on different platforms. And I mean, ultimately, I think our desire is that we'll end up with, you know, attracting, you know, big players to install this software on their websites for testing purposes, but also to facilitate this very much for individual organizations. So in very much the way that Kurt's described, actually having this available for your own use, for small, you know, for smaller scale testing or for testing of your own client base is really important. So we'd love people to just try it out, to give us some feedback. And also implicit in that is also ability, some sort of data sharing would be desirable for us as well. So if you're willing to share either partial data or anonymous data, that would be really, really helpful to us in understanding the use of the utility of the tool as well. So we'd love it if people wanted to try and use it. We've got some support and development time available as well, which we can help people if they need that. And we just love to see this start to get some uptake, basically. So thank you.
Right, if someone wants to follow up on that, Mark, what's the best way to do so?
I think the best way would be to get in touch with us. As I say, you can go to the site directly and have a read about it on there. But you're very welcome to contact us. And it's not on here, but I can say it verbally. You can contact us at support@dnsrf.org, and we can make that more available if you want to contact us directly. It's also on our website as well when you follow that link. But we'd love to hear from you, and we'd be happy to take any discussions further with that as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, last call. If anyone's got any questions or comments, and your chance to jump on if you do. Or if not, hopefully follow through on the link and get in touch directly with Mark and colleagues. And hopefully that's a useful tool that's now emerging, courtesy of a combination of the expertise in the DNS Research Federation and some funding from the ICANN's Office of the CTO to do it. So thank you to both parties. Brilliant. Well, thank you for doing that, and good to tick off the box to get the demo done. That was sort of trailed at OARC, but you weren't in a position to do, so people can see that it is definitely a working thing, not just a slideware, as can be the case occasionally. I guess we've all been there before, so good to see it. So thank you, and yeah, hopefully that's of interest to people, and get in touch directly with Mark and the team as appropriate. Right, quick change of pace then. Let me just go back and share my own slides. Just talk about a few things in the news from the last week or so. As always, those of you that are on the weekly headlines mailing list will have seen these. If you're not on the mailing list and would like to do so, just message me directly and I'll add you to the list. But since Kurt helpfully mentioned DNSSEC. DNSSEC, I think it's safe to say, he's been in the news somewhat over the last few days with talk about the key trap vulnerability, which, depending on your point of view, was just either a flaw or a fundamental design failure. I think I saw it characterized along those lines in one of the articles, but very timely write-up in RIPE in the last few days from the team that I believe discovered the flaw, and then various other articles. I've put a few links there as well. One good write-up from Akamai, as well as Bleeping Computer and Security Week. And I'll pause there because I see Ralph from Akamai has his hand raised. So jump in, Ralph.
Yeah, I mean, not to plug that, but I think really big shout out and thanks to John Todd from Core9, who kind of really put the team together to get to work on this. And it is a quite serious things. I mean, in security, these things happen, and it's really good the way how it was handled. And one of the takeaways should be that DNSSEC is still helpful, and people should use DNSSEC and shouldn't take this as sort of an excuse that it's kind of fundamentally flawed. It is a security technology that will evolve over time, and that we now have to maybe change some stuff on the RFC side, but it is definitely a useful technology.
Yeah, I think both really important points. So thank you for clarifying that. Well, there's a segue neatly into John. So John, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah. So hi. Yeah. Thanks, Ralph. So yeah, I mean, when I heard the description of this bug, it was pretty clear, or I shouldn't say bug, the issue. It was pretty clear that this was going to be a significant thing we all needed to sort out. And again, I'm really actually super pleased with the way the DNS community as a whole, and the development community more particularly, came together and worked on this, and combined and traded information. And the researchers, thank the researchers for coming to us first and talking to us about it. And I'm hoping that this can be a model for some of the future issues. And there will be always future issues, not just with DNSSEC, but with the DNS protocol in general, that people can combine forces and come up with a good resolution, because we're all sort of in the same boat here to some degree. Yeah, I guess I'll second Ralph's point that this is actually not a. We need to make sure that people don't get the wrong idea about DNSSEC, that this is still a very good protocol that we're pushing for. And actually the attention paid to it now is, I think, quite interesting and important. And that kind of justify or kind of validates that we're going in the right direction. I'm looking forward to more cooperation in this space, with both finding new methods to use DNSSEC, and then also potentially plugging more holes. With every protocol, there are going to be holes, and it's an ongoing process. So yeah, thanks to everybody who's not in this call, I guess, but who may listen to it later, for helping work on the issue.
Great, thanks, John. Yeah, and as you say, yeah, stuff happens. It's how it's addressed rather than the fact that there's a vulnerability that I think is the important learning from all of this. So yeah, and also to Ralph's point about DNSSEC continues to evolve. Also a very timely piece on the APNIC blog about quantum safe cryptography DNSSEC testbed. So very much looking to the future by sort of having a capability to test quantum safe cryptography options for DNSSEC going forward. So yeah, just underlining the fact this is will continue to improve, hopefully, over time. So plenty of stuff on DNSSEC. And yeah, we should be talking more about DNSSEC on this call next week, rather topically as well. You'll all be pleased to know. But more of that later. Other things, really detailed write-up on the OARC 42 meeting from Jeff Huston, who clearly made fantastic use of his long journey home, judging from the length of the blog post. So plenty of material there for anyone that either wasn't able to make the meeting and wants to catch up, or equally anyone that was at the meeting just wants some things to cross-reference. Jeff's covered an awful lot of ground in his write-up, as he always does, so that's good to see. Yeah, bottom of the page, interesting piece on sort of reverse DNS and ways of making that more secure, also using DNSSEC or not DNSSC. It's a typo on my part, so yeah, plenty of DNSSEC things this week, clearly. Over the page, I won't go through all of these in detail. A thoughtful post from Thomas King at DE Kicks, just considering some of the implications on the infrastructure of the internet from so-called immersive internet, and yeah, where some of the pinch points might be going forward. And he concluded his post with some comments on some of the challenges of interplanetary communications as well. So quite a thought-provoking piece in many ways. Other stuff, I just mentioned the last but one, the Baltic Domain Days is going to run same time as Eurodig in the same venue. The agenda isn't yet available in detail, but it's going to include 3 main themes apparently, which are the role of DNS in cyber security and content blocking as the first theme, domain usage possibilities in the digitalization process, second theme, and then third theme, domains and intellectual property connections and disconnections. So 3 distinct themes for the Baltic Domain Days, which will be in Vilnius in mid-June. As I say, same venue, and to coincide with Eurodig also being in Vilnius this year. Moving on, sort of 3 different ITF things. First one, just a comment. The main ECH encrypted client hello draft was due to go to working group last call shortly after the last ITF meeting in Prague in November. That was sort of the statement made at the TLS working group, and then there'd been sort of no progress since, either on the mailing list or on GitHub. A couple of us nudged the authors, and Eka, Eric Rescorla, formerly of Mozilla, is now was very active over the weekend, so looks like it will probably go to last call, maybe just before the next ITF meeting. So it's just sort of moving forward now after a 3-month pause. A reminder, I mentioned this last week, that because of Roman being appointed as IESG chair, that's left a vacancy for a new security area director in the ITF, and the NomCom has sort of announced a list of nominees and asked for comments. You've got till this Wednesday to make comments, should you have any to make on any or all of the candidates. I've listed them all on the screen. When I sort of click through on the link, Sophia doesn't list as available for comment now, so I suspect she may have withdrawn her nomination potentially. Either that or my browser's playing up, but there are either 6 or 7 nominees. You've got till Wednesday to comment on any of them should you desire to. And then finally, speaking of the next ITF meeting, ITF 119 in Brisbane, the preliminary agenda was published on Friday. The final version should be out this Friday. So if you're interested in seeing the draft version, that's available now. It probably will change a bit, judging from previous meetings, in terms of the running order of stuff. Probably not the actual content, just the timings. But the final version should be out this coming Friday, and then we'll gradually see the agendas for the individual sessions come available over the next few weeks. And as always, we'll pick up on that the Monday before the meeting's due to start. So yeah, in, I think 3 weeks time, 2 or 3 weeks time anyway. We'll look at that in a bit more detail, but drafts available now. Whole bunch of other stuff which I won't go through at length. Perhaps worth noting that as of, I think, the 17th, the Digital Services Act now applies to all online platforms within the EU. Obviously, the DSA was published some while ago, but it now has come into force in the EU. Various things there. Other stuff probably won't go through in detail. Just mention the one at the bottom of the page there, which is an interesting piece in light reading on European telcos preparing for quantum hackers. So that's maybe worth a look as well if you have an interest in all things quantum. Looking at calls for papers, the one coming up next is there's a questionnaire on it's a 20-year review of the WSIS implementation. So if you have any thoughts on that, so very much more on the policy side, you've got 10 days to put those into the questionnaire, and shortly after that you'll see that the call for proposals for the Centre Jamboree closes. So if you have aspirations to be involved in the centre jamboree in late May, I think it actually is, then you've got a couple of weeks to put your ideas in, and there's various other things coming up which I shan't mention now. Okay, a whole bunch of events as always. Just two I mentioned, which are highlighted. Domain Pulse in sort of a week or so's time in Vienna. I noted, looking at the agenda, it's got 2 sessions on NIS2. So on the first day, I think it is on the 22nd. So if you're interested in seeing how that applies in the sort of DNS arena, then those 2 sessions could be worth your time. And then another new addition to the list, ICANN has announced dates for its Contracted Parties Summit in Paris, the 6th through 9th of May. And that includes, on the last day, the 9th, a Combating DNS Abuse workshop, I think for the whole of the 9th. Which was sort of trawled, those of us that went to the DNS Abuse Day in Vietnam in September. It was mentioned then that they'd be running a sort of a further session. So I think that will include a discussion on the use of threat feeds by resolver operators, amongst other things. At least that's my understanding. It does clash exactly date-wise with the next RSA conference in San Francisco. So if you're planning to do cybersecurity stuff in San Francisco, you clearly can't be in Paris at the same time. And then finally from me, just a reminder, future call topics. Next week, we plan to talk about why DNSSEC hasn't been deployed as wide as perhaps it should be, and what can be done about that. So Ed Lewis will reprise his presentation from the last RIPE session, and that will lead to a discussion. The other thing I mentioned at the bottom there is tentatively, I've got we talked last week, I think Kurt, I believe, raised the suggestion about having a panel discussion on the DELEG extension to the DNS proposals, or at least, sorry, the DNS protocol, the proposed extension. It's not standard yet. And much to my surprise, Paul Vixie, Paul Mockapetris and Jeff Houston have all agreed in principle to be involved in that. Haven't yet finalised this, so absolutely tentatively at the moment. That's sort of penciled it in for the 29th April, so about a month after the IETF meeting, and the BOF on the same subject there to give time to reflect.
So, I mean, you have anybody that's actually a proponent?
I believe Paul Mockapetris is
Paul Mockapetris gave about as strong as an endorsement as he's likely to give, but he's, you know, I don't know. It just seems a little surprising to me that for a panel discussion, it does not have, you know, anybody that is, you know, promoting it. Paul is okay with it. He seems to be so far, although, yeah. So, I mean, as a panel goes, it does not seem like it's particularly, you know, looking for the viewpoints that include the people that are actually advancing.
Well, I'm entirely up to add if there's someone, which may be you, Tal, by the way. So don't be bashful.
Or Ralph, or better, right? Like, I'm not saying it has to be me. And I appreciate that there, you know, is useful discussion to be had from multiple points of view on it. It just of that set, not one of them stands out as somebody that is like, yes, let's do this.
Well, fair enough. Those were the names that came up in the discussion last week. But yeah, if anyone wants to, I won't put you on the spot now, but if anyone wishes to join that panel, I think there's an additional person. We don't have too many to be the overt proponent, if you will. So there's a clear position. Then, yeah, very happy to, I think, have a fourth voice. To make sure that there is balance, because I think that always up to make sure there is balance. So if your perception is it's not sort of appropriately balanced it. Very happy to add another person to ensure that is indeed the case. So anyone wishes to fulfill that role, yeah, get in touch directly if you wish, and we can do that. And speaking of which, Ralph, did you want to come in on that point, or did
yeah. No, I mean, I sort of agree with Tail. So I think adding one of the authors, and again, we'll probably can sort amongst ourselves who we want to be on that panel, but having one of the authors on the panel would be a good idea.
Surely. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, maybe that would be the compromise. If perhaps the authors would like to confer, and then let me know. I wouldn't wish to pick my favorite author. That would be terrible.
I'm a little
We'll
distressed
figure it
that
out.
you have a favorite author.
So yeah, come back to me collectively and let me know who you feel would be your preferred advocate then, and we'll do that. And either way, I think it should be an interesting discussion, because I think it's fair to say none of the individuals, or certainly none of the other three, are backward in sharing their views on things. So it should be a lively and fun discussion, if nothing else. And I think that's probably it from me. Yes, indeed it is. So let me stop sharing and see if anyone wishes to raise anything else. So if you do, if it's easiest, pop it in the chat. Better still, raise your virtual hand and unmute and talk. That'd be even better. So anything from anyone else on the call this week? I will give you a moment or two just to think if there is. Actually, one thing I will mention whilst you're thinking, the annual State of the Net event took place I think it was in Washington last Monday. Unfortunately, I didn't see the links to the recordings until after I'd sent out the weekly headlines this week, but the recordings of the sessions are now available, so some of those may be of interest to people. Again, more on the policy side. Certainly the ones I saw weren't deeply technical. I'll put a link along with a link to the recording. It'll be on the same page as the recording of the call as well. So there may be some things there that'll be of interest to some of the people on the call this week, assuming you weren't there in Washington in person. Anyway, I'm not seeing any hands raised currently, and I don't see anything further in the chat. So if there is nothing else, we'll maybe draw a line there. You've got sort of 10 minutes back time-wise this week. Don't forget, if you're planning to go to Brisbane and haven't registered yet for the IETF meeting, I think there'll be another hike in the cost of registration shortly, as we go from the early rate, because it was super early, it's now early rate, to the standard rate, which will be another bump in price imminently. So register sooner rather than later, otherwise I think it's another $200 or thereabouts if you pay the standard rate. But other than that, have a fantastic week, everyone. Hope that was useful, and look forward to further discussion same time next week. And thank you in particular, Mark, for your presentation and demo, and for taking a chance doing a live demo, which is always risky. So well done for that, and speak to you all next week. Thanks all.
Thanks, Andrew. Goodbye.